We have a problem, Batman. Gotham needs you again.
The 7 Archon demons represent the ultimate corruption of divine authority, fallen angels who have spent millennia perfecting their mastery over specific aspects of human weakness and universal destruction. Each Archon commands legions of lesser demons, while specializing in a particular form of temptation or devastation that can corrupt entire civilizations through careful manipulation of their chosen sin. The contingency protocol must account for beings whose power operates on cosmic scales, while their intelligence spans thousands of years of experience in breaking mortals and gods alike. Their greatest weapon isn't their supernatural abilities, but their intimate understanding of how to make good people choose evil through gradual corruption, rather than obvious force. The plan must address enemies who view time in centuries, who consider the fall of nations as minor setbacks, and who treat the corruption of souls as both art form and strategic objective. Individual specialization makes each Archon uniquely dangerous in their particular domain, while creating potential weaknesses when forced to operate outside their areas of expertise. Pride commands through ego manipulation and superiority complexes that make victims complicit in their own downfall. Wrath destroys through uncontrolled anger that turns allies against each other while consuming rational thought. Greed corrupts through material desire that transforms generosity into selfishness and community into competition. Envy poisons relationships by making people resent others' success rather than working toward their own. Gluttony destroys through excess consumption that makes moderation impossible and satisfaction unattainable. Lust reduces complex relationships to simple physical desire while eliminating emotional connection and moral consideration. Sloth paralyzes progress through apathy and despair that makes improvement seem impossible. The strategy involves forcing them to operate outside their specializations while exploiting the contradictions between their different approaches to corruption. Collective coordination represents their greatest strength, when united, but also creates vulnerabilities when their individual natures inevitably conflict with each other. The 7 deadly sins they represent are often mutually exclusive. Pride conflicts with the submission that gluttony requires. Wrath opposes the patience that greed needs for long-term planning. Envy undermines the cooperation necessary for large-scale operations. Their alliance works only when they have clearly defined separate territories and objectives, breaking down when they're forced to work together closely or compete for the same resources. The approach involves creating situations that pit their specializations against each other, exploiting their individual pride to make cooperation impossible, and forcing them into direct competition for limited objectives. When their greatest strength becomes their greatest weakness, their cosmic threat becomes manageable through divide and conquer tactics. What do you think, Alfred?
Master Bruce, the 7 Archon daemons represent something profoundly troubling: the systematic corruption of virtues into vices through patient manipulation that spans generations. They don't simply destroy, they pervert, taking humanity's greatest strengths and turning them into weaknesses that serve their purposes. What makes them particularly dangerous is that they understand human nature better than humans understand themselves, having spent millennia studying our psychological patterns and moral blind spots. Perhaps the most important defense isn't fighting them directly, but strengthening the virtues they seek to corrupt, building communities where pride becomes humility, wrath becomes justice, greed becomes generosity. Sometimes the best weapon against corruption is simply refusing to be corrupted.
Alfred's right that virtue strengthening provides the best defense, but his approach assumes people will choose good when presented with clear alternatives. The Archons are experts at making evil look like good, at convincing people that their vices are actually virtues deserving celebration. The strategy must include active counter, corruption measures that can identify and neutralize their influence before it takes root, technological solutions that can detect supernatural manipulation, and rapid response capabilities that can intervene when communities start showing signs of Archon influence. When fighting beings who operate through gradual corruption over decades, prevention becomes more important than cure, and early detection becomes critical for successful intervention. What do you think, Robin?
These 7 sound like they figured out how to turn every basic human weakness into a superpower. But here's what's interesting. They each specialize in just one thing, which means they probably don't understand the others very well. It's like having 7 experts who are really good at their own subject but terrible at everything else. If you could force them to deal with problems outside their specialty, they'd probably make mistakes that someone more well-rounded would avoid. Plus, if they really embody the 7 deadly sins, they probably can't help but act according to their nature even when it's tactically stupid.
Robin's insight about their specialization creating blind spots reveals a crucial tactical weakness. Each Archon is likely vulnerable to the sins represented by the others, making them potentially exploitable through their own natures. Pride can be manipulated through appeals to ego. Wrath can be misdirected through anger management. Greed can be distracted through material temptation, and so forth. The strategy involves using their own specializations against them by presenting them with challenges that require responses outside their expertise, while simultaneously appealing to their individual natures in ways that compromise their judgment. When cosmic-level demons become predictable through their own limitations, even mortals can develop effective countermeasures through superior tactical flexibility and adaptive thinking. Banishment protocols focus on severing their connection to the mortal realm, rather than attempting to destroy beings whose power may exceed comprehension. Each Archon requires specific conditions to maintain physical manifestation in our reality, including worship from followers, emotional energy from their specialized sins, and anchor points that tie them to earthly locations. The strategy involves systematic identification and elimination of these anchor points, disrupting their follower networks through counter-corruption efforts, and creating spiritual barriers that prevent them from drawing power from human sin. This includes working with religious authorities who understand banishment rituals, developing technology that can detect and disrupt supernatural energy patterns, and coordinating global efforts to reduce the specific sins that fuel each Archon's power. When their connection to our reality becomes tenuous, their influence decreases and their manifestation becomes unsustainable. Combined assault tactics acknowledge that fighting all 7 simultaneously would be impossible, requiring instead systematic reduction of their numbers through careful planning and strategic timing. The approach involves identifying which Archons are currently most active, targeting the weakest or most isolated for elimination first, and using the removal of individual demons to disrupt the remaining group's coordination and morale. This includes exploiting the natural conflicts between their different specializations, creating situations where helping one Archon requires harming another, and timing attacks to coincide with periods when their collective strength is reduced. The goal is transforming an impossible battle against 7 cosmic-level entities into a series of manageable confrontations with increasingly desperate and isolated opponents. The final assessment acknowledges that the 7 Archon demons represent the ultimate test of human moral resilience, proof that evil operates not through overwhelming force, but through patient corruption that turns our greatest strengths into our most dangerous weaknesses. Their defeat requires more than tactical superiority or technological advancement. It demands moral clarity that can resist temptation even when that temptation appears reasonable, beneficial, or even virtuous. The contingency protocols serve as both emergency response to supernatural threats and philosophical framework for maintaining human dignity in the face of cosmic-scale corruption attempts. Success means more than banishing 7 demons. It means proving that human virtue can triumph over systematic vice, that communities built on genuine moral foundation can resist corruption regardless of its source or sophistication. Because in the end, the greatest victory over the Archon demons won't be their destruction, but humanity's demonstration that we understand the difference between good and evil clearly enough to choose good, even when evil offers everything we think we want. That our moral compass remains true even when cosmic forces try to spin it in every direction except toward justice, compassion, and truth.